They said it was only for a while, only a few days for me to recover, so that they could organize themselves, tidy up the house, so that I could rest, away from the hustle and bustle. I believed it. How can I not believe in those who swore eternal love to me, in whom I dedicated my life? That tight hug at the door, the kiss wet with tears, the promise whispered in my ear. We'll be back soon, my love. The car leaving, the gate closing, and silence. The silence that has settled inside, a deafening silence that screams every dawn. Have you ever felt the weight of a gaze that doesn't meet yours, of an empty hallway that was once full of laughter? I remember the day I arrived, my bags, my hope intact. I remember the curious faces, the hesitant smiles. I remember asking the nurse when they would come and pick me up. And she, with a look that said everything and nothing, always answered with the same forced gentleness. Soon, dear. They will come soon. But the days turned into weeks. The weeks turned into months. The seasons changed outside, the leaves fell and were reborn, and inside, time seemed to have stopped. Hope, once a vibrant flame, was extinguished, leaving only the cold ash of disappointment. I wonder, have they forgotten me? Could it be that the love they once swore to be so strong, so true, has gone up in smoke? And if they haven't forgotten, why the silence? Why not a phone call, a letter, any sign of life? Has my presence become such a burden? A burden that not even love, gratitude, the blood tie could sustain? I just wanted to understand. I wanted to know what happened with that time, with that promise. What happened to them? And more importantly, what happened to me? Who now lives waiting for a return that may never come? You who are there listening to this, tell me. How to live with the certainty that the people you loved the most in the world abandoned you, left you behind, as if you were just old furniture, useless? How can we erase from our memory the smiles, the plans, the dreams that we have built together? How to move on when your future has been stolen, replaced by a loneliness that freezes the soul? The promise was simple, but its weight is unbearable. Just for a while, they said, and I, foolish, believed it. I believed it would be an interlude, a brief pause in our history. Now, I look at the walls of this room, which have become the walls of my life, and wonder if I will ever see the sun outside again, not through a guarded window, but under the open sky, feeling the wind on my face. I remember the mornings at home, the smell of fresh coffee, the conversations in the kitchen. I remember the hugs, the advice, the feeling of belonging. Now what remains are memories that become more and more distant, like photographs faded by time. I try to cling to them, but the reality of this place is unforgiving. The days are the same, the nights are long and cold. The only company is the whispers of others like me, forgotten souls in a limbo of waiting. Do they think of me? Does guilt at some point eat away at their conscience? Or did life go on, normal, without my presence, without my absence? The pain is not only that of being here, but that of knowing that I have been discarded. That the love, the dedication, the sacrifices I made were not enough to maintain the bonds. It's a slow poison that consumes me inside, turning every happy memory into a stab. How many times have I imagined the reunion scene? The gate opening, them running towards me, the screams of joy, the hug that would make me feel that it was all worth it. But reality is a cruel mirror that reflects only emptiness. And emptiness, my dears, is a terrible place to live. I wonder what you would do in my place. What do we do when hope is exhausted and the only certainty is that we have been forgotten? How do you live after having your whole life reduced to a just for a while? Time, that word that once meant future possibilities, is now just an empty echo. Just for a while. And that time went on indefinitely, swallowing up the years, the seasons, my own identity. I am no longer the person I was when I walked through this gate. Hope was transformed into resignation, joy into a deep and constant sadness. The days here are marked by the sound of bells, by silent meals, by superficial conversations that try to fill the void. But the void that matters, the one they left in me, that no one can fill. I remember when they told me that I was strong, that I was important. Have they forgotten that? Has my strength faded as the days passed with their absence? I look at my hands, wrinkled by time, and see in them the marks of a life dedicated to them, and I wonder if they remember all that I have done, of all the sleepless nights, of all the advice, of all the unconditional love I offered. And the answer, which crushes me, is that it probably doesn't. Or even worse, who remember but don't care. This is the most painful part: indifference. The certainty that my existence has become irrelevant. Have you ever felt the weight of irrelevance? It's like being invisible, but with the painful awareness that one day you were seen, you were loved, and now what's left is just waiting. Waiting for what? An end of a miracle, of a late memory? I don't know anymore. The only thing I know is that the promise was broken, and that the just for a while became my forever. And when I close my eyes, I still see the gate closing, and I wonder if they, when they look back, felt anything. Any regrets? Any nostalgia? Or just the relief of having gotten rid of a burden? I find myself smiling sometimes, remembering something funny that happened years ago. A silly moment, but one that brings me fleeting comfort. But soon reality hits me like a punch in the stomach. The reality that those moments, those people are so far away now that they seem to belong to another life. And the question that haunts me every minute: why? Why me? What did I do wrong to deserve this? Was I a bad mother or father? Was my love not enough? These are questions that consume me, that prevent me from finding peace. I see others here, waiting for visitors, receiving flowers, hearing news from the outside world. And me? I just wait. I wait for a sign, for an explanation, for anything that tells me that I have not been completely forgotten. Hope is a stubborn weed which insists on sprouting even in the most arid soil. But here the soil is so barren that even hope begins to wither. I wonder if they remember my birthday, if they still keep any photo of me, if they talk about me to others. These are cruel thoughts, but inevitable. Abandonment leaves deep scars, wounds that do not close, and the worst wound is the one that makes you doubt your own worth. Am I worthy of being loved? Did I deserve this fate? If you're watching this and there's someone waiting for you, please don't do what they did to me. Don't say just for a while if you don't intend to comply. Don't break the trust of the one who loved you unconditionally, because the echo of a broken promise is a lament that resonates forever in the soul of those who have been left behind. And my regret now is the only thing I have left. You know, friend, sometimes we carry such a big weight that it feels like our chest is going to explode. It's a weight made of memories, promises, and silences. I'm just a lady, like so many others out there, who lived a life, loved, made mistakes, got it right. I had a family, I laughed, I cried, I built dreams. And one day, life brought me to this place. A place that at first seemed to be just a stop, a temporary rest. They told me with their eyes full of a concern that I mistook for love. It's just for a while, Mom, Dad, only until we get organized. Words that echo to this day, like a distant echo, but that still hurt. I decided to tell you this now because time is passing, and the words need to come out. They need to find an ear, a heart that can understand, perhaps, or just so that I myself remember who I was before all this. Before the gate closes, before the silence settles for good, I feel so forgotten, as if my story had been erased, replaced by a period that should never have been written. It's hard to talk about it, you know. Each memory is a mixture of affection and pain. I remember the smiles, the tight hugs, the conversations close to my ear. And I wonder where all this has gone. Do they remember? Do they miss it? Or did life move on so fast that I fell behind, like an old photograph stored in a forgotten drawer? I just wanted someone to know, that someone would hear this story, not as a complaint, but as an outburst of someone who still carries love in his chest, but also the deep mark of a broken promise. The day they came to pick me up was like any other, at least in my initial perception. The sun was shining outside, the aroma of coffee was in the air, and the familiar buzz of the house enveloped me. My children, with somewhat forced smiles, explained the situation to me. It was just a phase, they said, a transition period. They needed time to reorganize, to solve some things. I, who had always been their safe haven, felt that my role now was to be the support, even if it meant a brief withdrawal. The idea of a nursing home, something I have always associated with a place of care and attention, seemed at that time a reasonable solution, a necessary interlude. The suitcase was made with a lightness that today causes me strangeness, a naive hope that it would only be a short stay. The farewell, with tight hugs and promises of frequent visits, left me with a bittersweet feeling, a mixture of affection and a twinge of uncertainty that I quickly ignored. And so my world, once so solid and familiar, began to crumble gently, without fanfare, with only the inevitability of a rising tide. The curiosity about what life would be like in that new environment was, at that moment, stronger than any fear. Upon arrival, I was greeted with a professional kindness, a smile that, though polite, did not carry the familiar warmth I had so longed for. The facilities were clean, organized, and the other residents, each with their own story, looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and resignation. The first few days were filled with novelty, with the attempt to adapt to the routine, to get to know the faces that surrounded me. I waited for the phone to ring, the familiar sound of one of my children's voices, the anxious question, "How are you, Mom, Dad?" But the phone remained silent, and the only communication I received was the gentle smiles of the nurses and the confirmation that they would come for me soon. That word, soon, began to stretch, to distort, losing its original meaning and turning into an ever farther away promise, a ghost of hope that haunted me. Confusion began to set in, the silent questioning. Had they really forgotten? The feeling of being trapped in a temporal limbo, where the present was an endless wait and the future, a painful unknown, was overwhelming. With each day that passed without news, a little piece of my faith vanished, like sand running down my fingers. The weeks turned into months. The seasons changed outside. The leaves took on vibrant shades of autumn and then fell, and the trees were left bare, waiting for spring. Inside, however, time seemed frozen. The promised visits never happened. The calls, when they happened, were short, hurried, full of lame excuses about work, about unforeseen events. I tried to understand, I tried to be understanding, but the pain of absence became more and more palpable, more real. I began to feel invisible, as if my existence, once so central to them, had become an insignificant detail. Fear set in for good, the fear of being forgotten forever, the fear that the love that was shown to me one day was just a facade, a temporary convenience. I felt like an object that, after fulfilling its function, is simply kept in a dark corner. The narrative tension of my life intensified. Each day was a chapter of uncertainty and loneliness. What afflicted me most was the lack of a clear explanation, a reason that justified such an absence. And this gap left a void that nothing seemed to fill. I remember one afternoon in particular when one of the nurses, with a look of genuine compassion, brought me an old photo album. They were images of me, younger, surrounded by my family. There were laughs in each photo, looks of affection, moments that I had lived intensely. As I flipped through the album, I felt an overwhelming mixture of longing and sadness. It was living proof of a past that seemed to belong to someone else, to another life. At that moment, the pain of my current situation became even more acute. The broken promise of just for a while materialized before my eyes, cruel and relentless. The fear that this was my reality, my forever, consumed me. The confusion turned into a deep anguish, and the feeling of abandonment intensified with each page turned. The question that hammered in my mind was, how could someone who once loved me so much leave me here, at the mercy of time and loneliness? The fragility of my situation hit me hard, and a lump formed in my throat, preventing me from expressing the pain that choked me. The memory of that album is a constant trigger, a painful reminder of what was and what is no more. Life here has its own rhythm, a monotony that, over time, becomes almost anesthetizing. However, there are times when reality imposes itself with brutal force. These are the days when I hear other residents receiving visitors, the tight hugs, the lively conversations. In those moments, my own loneliness becomes even more evident, more painful. I find myself watching people come and go, with a vain hope that one day, one of those familiar faces will emerge, a sign that I haven't been completely forgotten. The fear that my existence will be reduced to this eternal waiting, to this absence of contact, is constant. The confusion about the reason for all this, about what I did to deserve such a fate, accompanies me at every step. Was my love not enough? Was I a burden? These questions, unanswered, erode my inner peace. The silence that surrounds me, once just a feature of the place, now seems a reflection of the silence that has settled in my family, a silence that screams my abandonment. With each passing day, the narrative tension of my life becomes darker, and hope, once a guiding light, is now just a faint ember, ready to go out. This weight, it undermines us from within. It's not just their physical absence, it's the absence of what they represented. The ground I walked on, the certainty that I was important, that my love had value. Now all of this seems like a distant illusion. I look in the mirror and sometimes I don't even recognize myself. The wrinkles that were once marks of smiles, today seem to be furrows of a deep sadness, which time has not erased, it has only deepened. Health. Health. The heart no longer beats as strongly, memory fails at crucial moments, and sleep when it comes is disturbed by nightmares that bring me back to that closing gate. It's as if my body, tired of waiting, starts to give up. And the relationships here? They are fragile, like cobwebs. We try to connect, to share some of the pain, but the fear of being left behind once again is paralyzing. Trauma teaches you to close yourself off, not to trust, not to get attached. I see some trying to form bonds, and a part of me admires that courage, but another part screams, "Make no mistake, they will leave." And I move away, protect myself, hide in my own loneliness, which has become a dark but predictable companion. My ability to feel genuine joy has decreased dramatically. It is as if there is an invisible barrier between me and the world, preventing me from feeling fully, from surrendering. The worst, perhaps, is the doubt that settles in the soul. Was I really that bad? Did I do something that deserved this abandonment? These questions eat away at me. They make me question my whole life, all my actions. Guilt becomes a heavy burden, and I blame myself for not having been strong enough, for not having foreseen it, for having believed in the promises. It is a vicious cycle of self-criticism and suffering, from which it seems impossible to escape. Trust, that basis of any relationship, has been pulverized. And rebuilding this, when you are so fragile, seems like a Herculean task, perhaps even impossible. The transformation is internal, subtle, but devastating. The person I was, vibrant, full of life, gradually faded away. What remains is someone more withdrawn, more suspicious, with a look that carries the weight of years of disappointment. I try to find some meaning in all this, some lesson that can strengthen me. But the pain of loss, of abandonment, is so overwhelming that it obscures any attempt at resignification. Hope, once a living flame, is now an ember that stubbornly does not go out completely, but that can barely light the way. And this ember, sometimes, gives me an ounce of strength to continue, to remember that, despite everything, I am still here. It's a daily struggle against hopelessness, a constant echo of the broken promise that haunts me. Life here, with its peculiar rhythm, has taught me to observe. I watch the days go by, the seasons change outside, and most importantly, I watched myself. There was a time when anger was my only companion, a flame that consumed me inside, fueled by injustice, by abandonment. I fantasized about the confrontation, about the harsh words I would say when they finally appeared. I wanted to scream. I wanted them to feel a little of what I felt. But time, that implacable master, has the power to turn fury into resignation, and resignation into a strange, almost frightening calm. I realized that anger, as much as it seemed fair to me, only tied me even more to this pain, prevented me from seeing any ray of light. One day, as I sat in the garden watching the children play, something changed. I saw the purity in their eyes, the simple joy of a present moment, without the weight of the past or the anxiety of the future. And I wondered, could I somehow find some of that purity in myself again? The turn was not a grandiose event, a lightning bolt from the sky. It was an inner whisper, an invitation to look within, beyond the hurt. I began to focus on the little things that still brought me some comfort: the warmth of the sun on my skin, the taste of ripe fruit, the soothing sound of music that sometimes played in the hall. And little by little, I realized that my happiness no longer depended solely on their presence or absence. Forgiveness. This is a word that, for a long time, seemed impossible to me. How can I forgive those who have caused me so much pain, those who have broken the most sacred promise? But over time, I realized that forgiveness wasn't for them. It was for me. It was an act of liberation, of getting rid of the chains of hurt that bound me. It wasn't an instant pardon, it was a process. A slow, painful process of recognizing that their lives followed a path, and that perhaps I no longer fit into it in the way I expected. This does not cancel out the love that once existed, nor the good memories. It only recognizes the present reality. There was no new beginning in the traditional sense of returning home, of resuming the life I knew. My restart was internal. It was learning to live with the scars, to accept that some wounds leave permanent marks. It was finding a new meaning for my days, even within these walls. I began to dedicate myself to my small tasks, to help those in need, to share a smile with the other residents. I discovered that, even in a place like this, it is possible to find moments of connection, of affection. My forever has not become a place of despair, but a space where I have learned to survive pain and, in a way, to flourish. Today, when I think of them, I no longer feel that corrosive anger. I feel a sadness, yes, a melancholy for everything that was and is no more. But I also feel gratitude for all the experiences I had, for all the moments of love I shared, and in a way, gratitude for this journey of self-knowledge that, although painful, has brought me here. Life teaches us, in unexpected ways, to find strength where we least expect it. And my strength now lies in acceptance, serenity, and the certainty that, even abandoned, I have not abandoned myself. I chose, at my own pace, to continue to live, to feel, to be. And that, for me, is the greatest of new beginnings. The story did not end with the broken promise. It just took a different turn, a turn that I finally began to understand. And so, life follows its course, even when the paths we expected close. If you, who listen to me, find yourself in a similar situation, caught in the web of waiting, in the pain of a broken promise, remember, your strength lies in you, not in those who once promised it. Do not let abandonment define your value, nor let the silence of others silence your inner voice. Seek, even in the smallest things, a reason to smile, a moment of peace. Forgiveness, when it comes, will be for your own liberation, an act of self-love that no one can take away from you. And if, by chance, you are someone who once made a promise and could not keep it, look within. A simple gesture of affection, a sincere word, can be the balm for a wounded soul. Time heals, but your commitment to do good, to honor ties, can prevent other souls from going through the same pain. I found my peace, not in the return of those who left me, but in the rediscovery of myself. May your journey be illuminated by the strength that resides within your heart. If this story touched you, please share it. Perhaps together, we can spread a little more compassion and understanding in this world. I am grateful to have had the chance to tell my truth.